Good morning. Welcome to this session of the Patent Literacy Symposium using Reading Rocket's videos for professional development. I am Karen Deary, and I'm a consultant at the Patent Harrisburg office, and I'm so very thrilled to be able to facilitate this session for you this morning. A couple of housekeeping notes before we actually get started with the session. Handouts for this session are included in the Patent Literacy Symposium Schoology site. They will be listed, or they will be housed under the folder for June 12th, under the folder titled for this session. The session is 75 minutes long, and it is being recorded. The recordings will be available on the Patent YouTube channel in the near future. The chat feature will be available to you to submit questions to me that I can share with our presenter this morning. You will not have chatting abilities between participants. At this point, all of your microphones and cameras should be disabled. Please keep them disabled to minimize the disruptions and the distractions for participants through the presentation. We would love for you to tweet about all of your new learning and the excitement that you have about the Literacy Symposium and everything that's been happening this week. And you can see over my shoulder here, we have hashtag PA Lit Symposium 2020. Please share all of that on your favorite social media platforms. With that, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce this morning your presenter. Linda Farrell will be sharing with us this morning. She volunteering to teach adult struggling readers was a natural for Linda, who is a former English teacher, school counselor, and lifelong bookworm. Linda met her mentor, Dr. Louisa Moats, while she was volunteering to teach adults to read. She has since co-authored the Teaching Reading Essentials Program Guide and Coach's Guide with Dr. Moats. Linda is also co-author with Michael Hunter of Phonics Blitz, first edition, Phonics Boost, and the Diagnostic Decoding Surveys. Linda was a national letters trainer with Dr. Moats for 7 years. She's been presenting workshops, giving speeches, authoring publications, and developing reading assessment and instructional materials for more than 10 years. To keep her skills fresh and innovative, Linda works with struggling readers of all ages whenever she gets the chance to do so. Linda, we're honored to have you here with us this morning. I will turn the presentation to you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Patent does such good things for teachers, and we really, all of us really appreciate it. When I listened to you read the biography or the introduction, I realized I sent you an old one. I said this in the first session. I've been doing this for 20 years now, not 10 years. We today are going to talk about how you can use some videos that are on Reading Rockets for professional development. It's actually a bit of an extension of the first session. In the first session, we showed all 6 videos that are available. This session, we're going to take one video, and originally, when this wasn't going to be online, I was going to lead a professional development session with you. That's a little difficult when I don't get feedback immediately, so we've changed it, but I'm going to try to give you a feel for how a professional development session or sessions might go using one of the videos with Calista, who's in first grade. And this has already been said, but I put together several opportunities for you guys to ask questions, and we'll come to those, and if you have questions, just put them in the chat box. So we have some objectives. I think I've told you what they are. And let's start with talking about the background of these videos. I also talked about this in the first session. The school that we went to is about 20 or 30 miles outside Washington, D.C., in a much more rural area than Washington, D.C. And they identified 25 struggling readers in grades K to 3. Readsters went in and we assessed the 25 students that they looked at, that they identified as struggling readers. Noel and Christian from Reading Rockets, they watched us assess the children so that they could pick the ones that were most would be the best on video. And then we wrote up a little profile and 6 students were selected, and Calista is one of the students. Now, when you watch the video, it's real important for me, because I'm giving them, for you to understand that each complete lesson, that should say 25 minutes, not 20 minutes. Each complete lesson was about 25 minutes. And each lesson was filmed start to finish without any stopping. I didn't get to say, I don't really like how that went. Could we start over? Can I think about how I want to do that? Which was kind of a surprise to me when I got there, but that's okay if that's what they want. I had never worked with these students before. I only had the assessments that we had given. I had given the assessments to only 2 of the kids, so I never even met the other kids. And Calista I had never met before we started videotaping. But because we had given good assessments, I knew exactly where to start. And I hope we have time in this video, in this webinar, to get to the assessments. Just to let you know, the interviews were filmed in 2 sessions. One day, all 6 videos were shot. And I was shot at the end of that day. But then they said we need to interview on camera. So half the interviews were after the lessons were filmed, and half the interviews were about a month later. So you could use these for a number of reasons, but our purpose is to demonstrate and maybe give you some ideas about how you could use the videos for professional development. So here's an overview of the session. These are the 6 students, and then some extra clips. We are going to see how we could use Calista's video, which is 18 minutes and 26 seconds, but it'll really be about 17 minutes because we'll cut off the end that goes on. So what we're going to do is we'll first review a sample study guide for the video. Then we're going to watch the whole video, because we would want you in professional development, before you took little snippets, they would watch the whole video. Then we're going to suggest you take little snippets of this video and do a professional development with little snippets. But you have the teachers watch the whole video so that they understand where each snippet fits in. Snippet, what a great word. So then we'll talk about the video. We'll watch parts of the video again for further discussion. And then finally, we'll look at Calista's assessments that guided the instruction. So there is a sample study guide. This did get up on the website at midnight last night. I had to change it to make it match a webinar, not a PD session, not an in-person session. So there's a sample study guide that we would recommend that you prepare for your teachers so that they know what to do when they watch the video. We don't have study guides for everyone. If I ever get any time, I'm sure I'll put them together. That might happen in 7 years. Study guide sections. It has the title of the video, how to find the video, how to prepare for the group PD session, and it doesn't have the pre-reading and beginning skills map. We didn't. That only works if I'm if I'm there face to face. And then it has section 1, questions while viewing the video the first time, and then it has section 2 for questions to look at when we're reviewing little clips of the video about teaching and practicing sound chains. So let's look at the study guide. This is the study guide, and this page is what they need to be familiar with before they watch the video, if you're providing this. So you will tell them you're going to watch a video of Calista, grade 1, on the website at episode 3, Mastering Short Vowels and Reading Whole Words. It's 18 minutes and 26 seconds long. Here's how you find the video. And this is what you need to do before our next professional development session. You introduce this. Read the profile, review the questions, view the video, answer the questions. So here we go. The profile. I wish I could call on someone to read this, but I can't, so I'll read it to you. Calista reads 1-syllable words with short vowels. She reads almost all words accurately, but she has to sound them out. In other words, she reads b, at, bat. Miss Farrell makes sure Callista has the necessary skills to read whole words. Then she teaches Callista to read whole words instead of reading sound by sound. And that's what this video is about. So now we're going to have the teachers answer these questions as they watch the video. So this is just to make sure that they're focused and that they have something to talk about when you come back the next time. If you have the handout, you've got these. If you don't worry about it. We're going to watch. Oh, so anybody have anybody have any questions yet?
There are no questions at this time in the chat box.
Okay, so if you have questions after we watch the video, put them in the chat box. We'll have several chances to answer questions. So here we go. Here's the video. What do we call that vowel sound? And you say short
O.
You got it.
Callista is in first grade at Windy Hill Elementary School in Calvert County, Maryland. She's an early stage reader who sounds out letters accurately, and she can blend those letters together to form words.
Callista, could you please read this column?
Id, did, ad, al, pal, gum.
Reading expert Linda Farrell is helping Callista take the next step toward fluent reading, reading each word as a whole rather than one sound at a time. Their time together will include work on short vowel sounds, blending and manipulating sounds, reading whole words, and fluency. Miss Farrell starts by making sure Callista has a strong foundation in her short vowel sounds.
Okay, we're going to learn some motions. Can you hold an apple in your hand? And when I ask you the short A sound, you're going to say, ah. Say it.
Ah.
Now watch me. Apple. You do it.
Apple.
Okay, that is going to remind you of the short A sound. That's our motion. So say, ah.
Ah.
And when I ask you what the short A sound is, you're going to go, ah. Do it.
Ah.
Okay, for short E, go like this. Watch me. Go edge.
Edge.
So we want to start out by making sure she's solid with her short vowel sounds. So that's the first thing we did. And she did know when I said, what's short A? She knew it. She had to think a little bit. So what we did is we want her to, when she can't remember the vowel sound real easily, we want to not have to give it to her. We want her to have a scaffold to learn it. So we taught Callista the motions that go with the vowel sounds so that if she can't remember a vowel sound, what is the short O sound? Then all she has to do, I can go like this and remind her, or she can go, oh, it's octopus. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go to short O. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. Okay, here we go. Octopus. Do it.
Octopus.
Now we're not going to say the octopus part. We're just going to say ah. What's the short O sound?
Ah.
And make the motion. Ah. What's the short A sound?
Ah.
Short O?
Ah.
Okay, now we're going to learn short U. Are you ready for short U? Up. Do it.
Up.
And the first sound in up is What's the short U sound? Short A?
Ah.
Short O?
Ah.
Short U?
Uh.
The vowel motions that we teach are purposefully motions. They aren't static. Because if I say you can hardly hear the difference between those sounds. And children who have phonological awareness difficulties, which is the biggest problem in reading issues, they don't hear the vowel sounds easily. Listen to this. A, I, they sound different. So we want to encourage the children not to say ah. We want them to say ah. Therefore, The motion that we use, which is holding an apple, and then move it across the front of your body, left to right, motion of reading. Ah. And then pull is what the rest of the word is, but we only say the first sound. Everything encourages them to draw out that sound. Now we're going to learn short I. Are you ready for short I? Okay, watch this. I went stomping. I went hiking and I stomped and tromped in some poison ivy. And boy, do I itch. Do it. Do this. Itch. Do it. Itch. Now, you have to smile real big when you say itch. Go, itch. Okay, do it again. Short I sound. Itch. Okay, and itch is the guide word. I made a mistake. I should have told you that I is just like this. I. We don't even say the ch part. Just do this. I. What's the short I sound?
I.
Make it go I. What's the short A sound?
Ah.
Short I. Short I. Short A.
Ah.
Short O.
Oh.
Short U. You know your short vowel sounds. Callista was very confident with her vowel sounds. She knew them. I would still have worked on them a little bit more, but she was confident enough for me to move on to the next step. So the next step with a kid who's reading sound by sound isn't really intuitive. It's often a phonological problem. It isn't a problem with the letters. The kid knows the letters. I know the letter sounds. I can blend the letter sounds into a real word. What they aren't doing is thinking the sounds in their mind. They're turning that word, if it's hug. They look at it and they go, g. And they are never getting the full visual picture of that word. To them, it's always an H-U-G, and g, not hug. So they haven't moved to the where they can read the whole word without breaking it into phonics. And that's a step that we're going to have to teach her to do, which is one of my favorite things to do, because they just go from being really slow readers to just being normal readers once they can get this phonological representation. We're going to do something that we call sound chaining. Okay? I'm going to show you how it works. So I say, Miss Linda, show me the sounds in lip. So I go, O, I, P, lip. You touch and say.
U, I, P, lip.
Okay, what's the first sound in lip?
L.
L is the name of the letter. What's the sound?
Ooh.
What's the next sound in lip?
I.
I is the name of the letter. What's the sound?
I.
Okay, and when I ask you, you point to it, okay? So what's the first sound in lip?
Ooh.
What's the next sound in lip?
I.
And the last sound in lip? P. And what's the
Lip.
word? Okay, so that's lip. If I want to change lip to sip, I take out the O and I put in a S. Touch and say sip.
I. Sip.
What if I want to change sip to tip?
You take away this one and add
Okay,
this
so
one.
what did I take out? Sip to tip. Say sip to tip.
sip to tip.
Which one did I take out? If this is sip, take out.
The S and add the T.
Okay, now I want to change tip to Tim. So let's touch and say tip.
I. Tip.
Now touch and say Tim.
I. Tim.
Which one's different?
The last one.
So what do I take out of tip to change
last
tip to
one.
Tim? And what sound do I take out?
P.
P is the name of the letter. What's the sound? Okay, take it out. And what do I put in to make it Tim?
M.
M is the name of the letter. What's the sound? Okay, so now I've got Tim. Touch and say Tim.
I. Tim.
I want to change Tim to Tom. When we work with sound-by-sound children, we make sure that they know the difference between letters and sounds and that they can manipulate sounds. Once they can blend and segment sounds confidently, we move to manipulating. How do we do that? We work with colored tiles. They don't have letters on them because we want the child to have no distraction with letters. What we want is the child to be thinking about sounds. Touch and say tap.
App. Tap.
Can you change tap to tape?
Miss Farrell gives Callista plenty of quiet time to think about which sounds are changing.
Okay, let's check that, because one thing you did right is there's always only one tile that changes. Let's touch and say tap.
App. Tap.
Touch and say tape.
Ape. Tape.
Which one's different?
The middle.
Yeah, what sound do you take out of tap?
A.
A is the name of the letter. What sound do you take out of tap?
Ah.
Okay, take it out. And what sound do you put in to make tape?
E.
Say tape.
Ape.
Say, touch and say.
Ape. Tape.
What sound was that?
A.
It was A. Okay, so you put in the sound A. If I want to change tape to take, which one do I change?
This one.
Yes. What sound do I take out of tape?
P.
What sound? Yeah. Okay, and what sound do I put in to make it take? Now, this time, when I ask you to make the change, keep your mouth closed and think about it, okay? Okay, so don't open your mouth. You can think the sounds in your head. So we've got take to make. Okay, look down. You can look down. Take to make. Can you say take to make?
Take to make.
Okay, which one changes? Keep your mouth closed. Don't. You have to think the sounds, okay? Okay, so take out t. And what are you going to put in for make? What sound? Okay, can you change? Now again, mouth closed. Okay, but I'm going to ask you to say make to mate. Say that. Make to mate.
To mate.
Okay, close your mouth and think about which one. When you know, touch it. Okay, what sound comes out of make? Take it out. What sound goes in for mate? Okay. One of the things Callista does is I say, what's the first sound? And she gives me the name of the letter. And we've got to get sound-by-sound children to think in terms of there are letter sounds and there are letter names. Because the name of the letter, the first letter in phone is P. But the first sound in phone is F. And if she doesn't get the difference automatically and quickly, she'll always be struggling with reading. It's easy to teach. It's no big deal. And I think that you see Callista make great strides in her reading. Back and start again.
Now we're at the point where Miss Farrell will push Callista to a higher level of reading, from reading words sound by sound to reading whole words.
Could you please read this column?
Id, did, add, al, pal, gum, it, kit.
Students who read sound by sound see a letter, make it a sound, see a letter, make it a sound, see a letter, make it a sound. So this is what's happening. What that keeps her from being able to do is develop a visual imprint of words and word patterns on her brain. And you never look at the word as a whole. We're trying to get Callista to look at the word as a whole, as opposed to looking at it letter by letter by letter. Now what I'd like you to do is I want you to go back and this time keep your mouth closed before and think the sounds and don't open your mouth until you know what the word is and can read it, okay?
Did.
Keep going.
Add. How. And. Mud.
Okay. Whew, you got pretty good there, didn't you? Closing your mouth.
You can sense the wheels turning in Callista's mind as she works silently to sound out the letters and put the sounds together into a word. Next comes work on fluency.
Start right here.
Can. The. Lad.
Okay, now go back and read it again.
Can. The. Lad.
Now, can you go back and read it? Can the lad? Okay, read it.
Can the lad
Okay.
be in the mud?
Okay, read it like you'd say it.
Be in the mud.
Okay, now read the whole sentence.
Can the lad be in the mud?
Okay, can you read that one?
Kim was hot and got a fan. Kim was hot and got a fan.
Okay, we're going to go and read a couple of sentences now. Those were phrases and they turned into sentences. Could you please read this sentence?
Gus got mud on the rug.
Okay, and now we're going to go read passage. Okay, what's the title?
Don and Pip.
Okay,
Don was a lad. Pip was a pup. Don and Pip had a one. The sun was hot.
she was getting faster as she closed her mouth. She made more mistakes than she would make if she read sound by sound. She didn't make that many mistakes, but she did make more mistakes. But that's okay, because that's what happens when you start changing a habit, is you go backwards a little bit. She'll eventually, and I think fairly quickly, be a much faster reader and a much more proficient reader. Do you ever read a book that you like? Callista made a lot of progress in this lesson, and she is on her way to being a top-notch reader.
We'd like to thank the Read.
Any questions?
Yeah, so we do have one question that came in. Would you recommend teaching all of the vowels at once, or was that just for the demonstration purpose?
As mostly for the demonstration purposes. If kids are having struggling with short vowel sounds, I teach one at a time until they are confident with that one vowel sound and motion. Then we move to the next one, and then we move to the next one. And so, no, that was actually, Callista knew her vowel sounds. What the assessment said, well, she missed a couple of vowel sounds in her assessment, if my memory is right. We'll look at it. She knew them, but she wasn't real confident with them. I had asked Reading Rockets really to take that out of the video because it didn't really add to what we did with Callista. I really could have done the chaining without doing the video, the short vowel part, but because she had those that had been on her assessment, I needed to check it. They kept it in because they liked the idea that teachers could have something that they could use to get some ideas about how to teach the short vowel sounds.
Excellent, thank you. That was the only question that came in through the video.
Wow, okay. So that it would be session 1. If you have, I know a lot of PLCs are 20 minutes long, 30 minutes long. If you have 30 minutes, that video is about 17 minutes without the ending part, which we didn't look at. If you have 30 to 45 minutes for PD sessions, you could watch the video. The teachers wouldn't even have to watch it, they wouldn't have to watch it outside. Most people who use these videos do have the teachers watch them outside. The first, if they watch it outside, then, or whether they watch it inside, you'll want to talk about the video. So you'd ask questions, and these would be the questions they were looking at. The beginning of the video, does Calista read the words accurately or inaccurately? And I can't ask you to respond, but the answer is she reads the words accurately. But how, the second question is the key. How does she read the words? Well, she's sounding them out. This is what we call a sound by sound reader. She either has to read all the sounds, such as d or p, it, or she reads onset rhyme. She went ow, pow. So she's even going to the rhyme and then going back and looking and then adding the first part, the onset. And boy, that's not setting up good reading habits, because we want children to read across from left to right. So how does Calista read the words at the end of the video? Well, I believe that she's actually reading them fairly, she's really paying attention during the phrases to keep her mouth closed, reads one at a time. And then, do you have any students with difficulties similar to any of the difficulties that you saw with Calista? And then I'd talk about how are their difficulties similar, and maybe how are they different, so that you could have a discussion about the whole video. What you don't want to get into is you don't want to get into why sound by sound, what do you do? Because that's what we're going to do when we take short clips. So that's what we'll do next. Now, if I have a group that doesn't, they say, oh yeah, we watched the video, we don't have any questions, then I ask some prompting questions. Why do you think Linda worked on sound chains with Calista before having her read? Well, the answer to that is because it's not going to do any good to have her read if we don't fix her phonological problem. That's that hidden problem. And then what techniques did Linda use when Calista read? She had her read again. She had her close her mouth and think the sounds. So that would be just a short discussion about the video in general. The most important question I think you would ask is, what in this video would you like to discuss further? So I think the video lends itself to 3 PD sessions: teaching vowel sounds, teaching phoneme manipulation with sound chains, and then finally the practices to move from sound by sound to whole word reading. Frankly, I wish we had more time to do the whole sound by sound to whole word reading, but if you want, I can give you a little more detail on that, what you would do beyond what's shown in the video. So now we're going to go into PD session 2. And depending on your time, you might break this into 2 sessions. But we are going to explore the problem with sound by sound readers. So you've got your teachers in your PLC or whatever you're doing, and you're going to have the teachers watch this little clip. You can see it's on the video. It's from 5.5 minutes and 33 seconds to 6 minutes and 49 seconds. So it's about a minute. And then we'll talk about what I explain that the problem is when students are reading words sound by sound. So let's watch that. Calista was very confident with her vowel sounds. She knew them. I would still have worked on them a little bit more, but she was confident enough for me to move on to the next step. So the next step with a kid who's reading sound by sound isn't really intuitive. It's often a phonological problem. It isn't a problem with the letters. The kid knows the letters. I know the letter sounds. I can blend the letter sounds into a real word. What they aren't doing is thinking the sounds in their mind. they're turning that word, if it's hug, they look at it and they go, g, and they are never getting the full visual picture of that word. To them, it's always an H-U-G, and g, not hug. So they haven't moved to the where they can read the whole word without breaking it into phonics. And that's a step that we're going to have to teach her to do, which is one of my favorite things to do, because it's just, they just go from being really slow readers to just being normal readers once they can get this phonological representation. So we will talk now, if we were having a discussion, we would talk about what have you done with sound by sound readers before you saw this video? What did you do? Because most teachers just want the student to read the word over and over again until they don't have, until essentially they've memorized it. And we're not about teaching kids to memorize. You have a word stored in your brain, not just with the letters, but with the sounds. So the kids have to be able to match those sounds real quickly with the letters. And then what did I explain that the problem is? The problem is they can't manipulate phonemes. And even though we didn't assess Callista on manipulating phonemes, what we know is that if she has sound by sound word problems, it is a manipulating phonemes. It's a phoneme manipulation problem. I've worked with kids, sound by sound readers, for at least 16 years. And I've only met one sound by sound reader who did not have a phoneme manipulation problem. And that sound by sound reader just thought that's what he was supposed to do. So he was fixed really quickly. So I want to take an opportunity to analyze the sound by sound reading problem. I want to show you, illustrate what's happening. This is what a normal person, a typically developing reader, does when they see a single word and they're silent reading. So they see a word in the text, that word goes into their eyes, and they think the word. And then they read another word, it goes into their eyes, they think the word. And sometimes they can even read 2 or 3 in the, it's called the foveal view, but that they can take in more than one word. But it's essentially a 2-step process. They see the word, they think the word. They see the word, they think the word. Now let's look at a typically developing reader read a word orally, which is what Callista is doing. She's not typically developing. So we have a word, it goes into our eyes, we think the word, and it comes out our mouth. It's 3 steps, and it's 3 steps that seem to happen simultaneously. They happen so fast. I mean, first they see the word, then they think the word, then it comes out their mouth, but it happens so fast that it just happens simultaneously. Now let's look at what we call the Darby syndrome, because I figured it out with Darby when working with Darby. This is a student who reads sound by sound. There's a word in the text. They see a letter, not the word. They look at a letter. They think the letter. They see a letter, they say the sound. That's pretty quick. They don't even have to think it. They see a letter, they say the sound. They hear a sound. Then they hold that sound in their head. They see another letter. They think and say the next letter. They hear it, and they hold that sound. Okay, now there's another letter in the word. So they see the letter, they say the sound, they hear the sound, and then they hold the sound. And after all that, they come out and they finally, in their head, blend the sounds and say the whole word. Look at how many steps they have to go through to get to reading a word. And here's the problem. They have never looked at this word in text to build a mental orthographic image. They see a letter, they look at a letter, and once they've got those sounds stored in their head, they no longer have to look at the word. And that's a huge problem, because you can't build a mental orthographic image without looking at the whole word. It's not going to happen. So what do we have to get rid of? We have to get rid of all these red lines where They have to say, put it into their ear, and then turn it into a phonological awareness exercise. So the first thing we have to do is we have to say, I don't have a visual for this, but we have to say, we're going to get rid of this. So when they close their mouth, they no longer can do these. They are forced to think the sound before they say the word. Of course, it's allergy season in Washington. Excuse me. They have to, excuse me. We have to get them, teach them to think the sounds, blend them, look at the word before they say the word. That's what we've got to do. And that's what we were doing with Calista. But first, before we do this with letters, we do it with sounds. And you saw that what we were doing with sounds, I clearly need some more illustrations. What we were doing with sounds is we were getting rid of the letter part, and we were having her think sounds before she said the whole word. So we're teaching her to think those sounds in her brain. So what's going on? The student is unable to quickly and simultaneously process the written word. Because the written word, what we do is we know that it's combined sounds, it's a unit of letters, and it's a combined phonological and orthographic unit. That's what creates a sight word, not a high frequency word, but a sight word, a word that you know on sight. So you have a mental orthographic image, or an MOI, and these kids just are not even beginning to build a mental orthographic image. So what we have to do is educate their phonological processor to work without letters. And then we educate their phonological processor to work with letters. So what kind of practice helps phonological awareness weaknesses? Manipulating phonemes, you guys. That's it. And then the student has to be able to blend and segment. You guys, this is real important. You just don't go to manipulating phonemes. You have to know they know how to blend and segment phonemes with automaticity before working on phoneme manipulation. All right. So how do we know that Calista needs to practice phonemes? Well, we know that, I know that because of my experience, but that is reinforced by the very important work of Kilpatrick. And I think Kilpatrick has a very good relationship with Patton. And so I think people probably know Kilpatrick, but I just want to read this to you. It's so important. It's from his book, Essentials of Assessing, Preventing, and Overcoming Reading Difficulties, published in 2015. Despite their inclusion in the universal screeners, segmentation tasks are not sensitive enough to identify many of the students with poor phonological awareness. I meet lots of kids who can segment and blend beautifully, but they can't manipulate at all, and that was Calista. Numerous research reports include data to show that from first grade onward, manipulation tasks display higher correlations with reading measures than segmentation tasks. You guys, don't stop at blending and segmenting. Now, for typically developing reader, they just get it with print, but Calista is not a typically developing reader. So this is the research behind what we know works. Questions from the chat box.
So there was just one question, I think it came in just as you were setting up that section, that somebody would ask to know the next steps for working with sound by sound readers. So I did just circle back to find out if she got enough information, but she's asking for whatever the additional information is that you said you would post as well.
Oh, what did I say I would post? Oh, I don't know what I said I would post.
Okay.
But if she wants to email me, it's Linda@Readsters. And if she wants, we are very good at sharing. We are happy to share.
So just Linda@Readsters and
Linda@Readsters.com.
Perfect. I'll put that in the chat box. And we can always go back and we can listen to the recording or look at the captioning to find out.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of forgot that I said I'd give something, but I will be happy to share things.
Okay.
Uh,
Thank you.
okay, so now that could be just a little professional development. But if you have more time, you could go to how do you teach sound chaining? And let's concentrate on these questions. How do you know that Callista confuses phonemes with letters? Now, you guys, I know you've just seen the video, so you know the answers to these now. But remember, this is a PD session. They looked at the video 2 weeks ago, and now you're talking about it. So how do I help Callista figure out which sound changes in tip to Tim? And what is sound chaining? So let's just, we're going to do something that we call sound chaining. Okay, I'm going to show you how it works. So I say, Miss Linda, show me the sounds in lip. So I go, O, I, P, lip. You touch and say.
P, lip.
Okay, what's the first sound in lip?
L.
L is the name of the letter. What's the sound?
Ooh.
What's the next sound in lip?
I.
I is the name of the letter. What's the sound?
I.
Okay, and when I ask you, you point to it, okay? So what's the first sound in lip?
Ooh.
What's the next sound in lip?
I.
And the last sound in lip? P. And what's the
Lip.
word? Okay, so that's lip. If I want to change lip to sip, I take out the O and I put in a S. Touch and say sip.
I. Sip.
What if I want to change sip to tip?
You take away this one and add
Okay,
this
so what
one.
did I take out? Sip to tip. Say sip to tip.
sip to tip.
Which one did I take out? If this is sip, take out.
The S and add the T.
Okay, now I want to change tip to Tim. So let's touch and say tip.
I. Tip.
Now touch and say Tim.
I. Tim.
Which one's different?
The last one.
So what do I take out of tip to change
last
tip to
one.
Tim? And what sound do I take out?
P.
P is the name of the letter. What's the sound? Okay, take it out. And what do I put in to make it Tim?
M.
M is the name of the letter. What's the sound? Okay, so now I've got Tim. Touch and say Tim.
I. Tim.
I want to change Tim to Tom. Okay, so we watched that. So the first question is real easy. How do you know Callista confuses phonemes with letter names? Because I'm asking for a sound and she's giving a name. So that is an easy one, and I bet you'll have lots of kids who do that. Second one is, how do I help Callista figure out which sound changes in tip to Tim? Wish I could ask you and have someone answer, but the answer is we do touch and say, so that she recognizes, oh, she has to think about it, it's the last sound. Now, typically developing readers automatically know Tim. They just automatically know the last sound. But Callista needs to be taught how to do that. And then finally, what is sound chaining? Well, sound chaining is, and this is sound chaining, not letter chaining. Sound chaining is changing a sound, any sound in a word, including, you can use F when it's the sound when it's spelled PH. I could change phone to tone, to ton, which T-O-N is ton, but it doesn't matter because it's a short U sound. We want them to go to think about sounds. So that's what sound chaining is. Any questions?
No new questions.
Okay, so then the next part, and this is only 30 seconds, you guys, this is talking about sound chaining. So when we work with sound by sound children, we make sure that they know the difference between letters and sounds and that they can manipulate sounds. Once they can blend and segment sounds confidently, we move to manipulating. How do we do that? We work with colored tiles. They don't have letters on them because we want the child to have no distraction with letters. What we want is the child to be thinking about sounds. So, why don't the tiles have letters on them? And of course, it's because we want them to be thinking about sounds, not about letters. And I get a lot of pushback from teachers on this, that they want them to know the letters. I want her to know the letters too, but that's not what we're working on. We're working on getting her to be able to deal with sounds, to hold sounds in her brain, to be able to hold those. And we're going to eventually get to where she can immediately say it's the first sound, it's the last sound. One of the things you might have noticed is that she always wanted to say, when I'd say, which sound changes? The last sound. And boy, she wanted to get it in and out. And when I'd say, well, what sound is that? She would have to think, okay, I have to go through all those sounds. I have to go through t, I, p, to get to the p in tip. A typically developing reader just automatically goes to that final sound. They don't have to go through the whole thing. And why is being able to manipulate sounds a critical skill for fluent reading? That's a really obvious answer. You can't read fast if you're just reading every letter and turning it into a sound, then having to turn that into a word. So then, any questions?
Not at this time.
Well, this is just a quiet group. They must already know everything. Chaining tap to tape. I just think this is fascinating. This is about 9:38, 10:30, about a minute and a half. So let's touch and say tap.
Tap. Tap.
Can you change tap to tape?
Miss Farrell gives Callista plenty of quiet time to think about which sounds are changing.
Let's check that, because one thing you did right is there's always only one tile that changes. Let's touch and say tap.
Tap. Tap.
Touch and say tape.
Tape. Tape.
Which one's different?
The middle.
Yeah. What sound do you take out of tap?
A.
A is the name of the letter. What sound do you take out of tap?
Ah.
Okay, take it out. And what sound do you put in to make tape?
E.
Say tape.
Ape.
Say touch and say.
Ape. Tape.
What sound was that?
A.
It was A. Okay, so you put in the sound A. If I want to change tape to take, which one do I change?
This one.
Yes. What sound do I take out of tape?
P.
What sound? Yeah. Okay, and what sound do I put in to make it take? Hey, you guys, this is a really, I think, important part, and it explains why we don't just stick with short vowels in phonological awareness, even though we are only going to use short vowels in reading. So Callista, she asked, when I ask what sound changes in tap to tape, she points to the middle sound, and I say, what sound do you take out? And she says A, because that's the name of the letter that she's thinking of. So I have to guide her back to sounds. Oh, let's try that again. Or touch and say. That's always how I guide back to sounds. Touch and say. So now she figures that's an A. So she's going to take out the A. And I'll be darned if I ask what sound does she put in? She says E. Well, you guys, that wasn't just some random answer. She is thinking that tap is spelled T-A-P and tape is spelled T-A-P-E. So I must put in an E. And this is why she gets confused. She cannot simultaneously think about sounds and letters. She's either thinking about letters or she's thinking about sounds, and sounds is not her strength. So we've got to get rid of those letters. It used to have been, I'd say 3 years ago, I would have said, oh, I know you know how to spell the word, but I don't say that anymore because I want to get totally away from letters. This is not about, is there an E at the end of tape or is there not an E at the end of tape? This is about what sound changes in tape. So the next question, why is tap to tape more difficult? Because the same letter spells two sounds. And once they can master that, they've got manipulation. The rest of it, they've already mastered. So the rest of the questions, why do students need to be able to think about sounds and not just letters? Because that's how we read, matching sounds and letters. And then I'm not going to go over how do you do this activity with a small group. I'm just going to say that every small group is 3 individual lessons. If you have 3 kids, 6 individual lessons, because I've got to give everybody a chance to perform. So it would just be, it's your turn, your turn, your turn, your turn. Questions from the chat box?
I don't see any additional questions right now.
Okay, so then the next thing is more advanced chaining. So this one is about 2 minutes. So we'll watch, whoops, that one's not going to show. Here it goes. Okay. When you know, touch it. Think about it. Keep your mouth to make the change. This time, when I ask you to make the change, keep your mouth closed and think about it, okay? Okay, so don't open your mouth. You can think the sounds in your head. So we've got take to make. Okay, look down. You can look down. Take to make. Can you say take to make?
Take to make.
Okay, which one changes? Keep your mouth closed. Don't. You have to think the sounds, okay? Okay, so take out t. And what are you going to put in for make? What sound? Okay, can you change? Now again, mouth closed. Okay, but I'm going to ask you to say make to mate. Say that. Make to mate.
To mate.
Okay, close your mouth and think about which one. When you know, touch it. Okay, what sound comes out of make? K. Take it out. What sound goes in for mate? T. Okay. One of the things Calista does is I say, what's the first sound? And she gives me the name of the letter. And we've got to get sound by sound children to think in terms of there are letter sounds and there are letter names. Because the name of the letter, the first letter in phone is P, but the first sound in phone is F. And if she doesn't get the difference automatically and quickly, she'll always be struggling with reading. It's easy to teach. It's no big deal. And I think that you see Calista make great strides in her reading. So this, you all, we don't do close your mouth until they're accurate at being able to identify the first sound, the last sound with their mouth open. They'll never be fast when they get to their mouth open. But the next step is, once they're accurate, now we close their mouth. I hope you noticed how long it took her to figure out changing the first sound with her mouth closed. This is forcing her to think about the sounds. And when she can do this, her mouth closed, she can think the sounds and quickly go to the last sound changes, the first sound changes, the middle sound changes. Consistently, that's when she's demonstrated competence in manipulating sounds. So any questions from the chat box?
No, there are not.
Okay, so other PD sessions from the video that you could do would be teaching vowel sounds. how to practice reading with a student moving from sound by sound to whole word reading. That would be the end. Now I want to show you the assessment that we use to figure out what does Calista need. We gave a beginning decoding survey. These are available from Really Great Reading. They're free. Form A is free. Form A is all I ever knew. I wrote these, and I never use any form other than Form A. And I wrote all the forms. Michael and I did. So these are all one-syllable first-grade words. And we had Calista read these words. They're words. You can see there are some high-frequency words that are irregularly spelled. There are lots of one-syllable words, all these middle of first-grade words. So Calista read 44 of these words correct. So I would think, well, I just need to do a little bit of work with her on short vowel words. Uh-oh, here's the problem. She had 18 sound by sound words. So she's reading them correctly, but she's reading them sound by sound. That is her problem. I knew it right here when I looked at this assessment, but we had given her one other assessment. And that other assessment is, and notice, she doesn't have trouble blending the sounds. Her errors up here are lid as lied, hid as had, and that's because she's reading a sentence and she guessed had. And then she read sound by sound, she got it correct. Well, she actually had seven sound by sounds. But anyhow, what happens is you can see fid is tid, weck is weak. She's blending fine. She just can't get away from sound by sound. The next thing we did is we had her read connected text with short vowels, and we had her read all short vowel words. I don't even think there are any digraphs. Oh, there's one digraph, two digraphs, SH and CK. And here's what happened. She read all 50 words correctly. How many words did she read sound by sound correctly? She read 6 correctly. So that says number of correct sound by sounds, it's 6. So we know that in text, she doesn't have to rely on sound by sound quite as much for reading individual words because she's got the context and she can somewhat guess what the next word is. Look at the words that she had to do sound by sound. Lex, not a familiar word. Pals. She doesn't really know the word pals. Shot. The vet got a shot. That's not really what she expects there. So she's really the more complex words. That one has 4 letters. Oh, I got to sound out that one. And then lick, another word that isn't a real high frequency where you don't see lick very often. So once again, we know that's the problem, sound by sound. She needs to practice manipulating phonemes, and she needs to read words, sentences, and passages, closing her mouth until she knows the word and then can read it aloud. And you guys, because you haven't had any questions, which I allowed time for, we're finished 10 minutes early. So does anyone have any questions?
I'm not seeing anything come through the chat box. Maybe they're typing. We can give them a minute to do that. I'm not seeing any hands raised in the list.
What I really hope that you all got out of this is an idea, if you do professional development of any kind, lead PLCs, that you got an idea of how you don't have to use the whole video. You can actually use chunks of the video to talk about different problems. And that was really the most important thing. Plus, I hope you got some insights into sound by sound readers and what their problems are.
Yeah, so Linda, there is a question that just came in. Would you ever use tiles with letters on them?
Yes, I would. I would use tiles with letters on them for a totally different purpose. It would be what we call a spelling chain. So that once the kids are good at phonological awareness and they can manipulate sounds easily. Now, when they're reading, when they first read, then what we do is we'll say, okay, you've got some letter tiles. Let's change. You show me mat. They would go M-A-T, and then they'd say at mat. Change mat to cat. They would change the M to the C. Change cat to cat. Let me see. Change cat to Kate. No, I can't do that. I can only use short vowels because I can only use what they sound. I don't have any tiles in front of me. Change cat to cap. Change cap to can. Change can to man. Change, and all those are letters because what we want them to do is be able to quickly recognize which letter changes. They can't do that if they don't quickly recognize which sound changes. Otherwise, you're just memorizing letters. If that isn't a very good explanation, could someone ask me another question? But there is a time, absolutely, to use sound chains or letter chains, spelling chains.
Yeah, no, I think that made sense. That was good. There's a couple of questions about where to find materials. So there's a regular ed teacher who sees a similar problem with her own son. So her question is, where do we find the assessments? And the second question is, where can you find the other 5 videos that you mentioned in the beginning?
If you go to readingrockets.org, I'll answer the first one fast. Readingrockets.org, and let me show you. We have time.
Can
I just show you?
Please.
I'm just going to show you. Let me get out of this video, and I will just show you. We will go to readingrockets.org, and this is what comes up. Now, do you see these little dots right here? What's happening is they're advertising they're advertising things that they're showcasing. Uh-oh, I might not be up there anymore. Oh, you can tell they've changed. Okay, so now what you do, you have to go let's type in Linda Farrell. I've never had to find them this way. Look, reading interventions. That's what it is right there. So if you see, when you go to looking at reading interventions, what you do is you'll see here's Reese with, we teach Reese, a kindergartner. Here's the second one, the third one. This is Calista. And here are all the others. There are also a few extra videos. These are all the lessons, but then there are a few extras that they took out of some interviews with me. And I'll just, I'm going to play one for you that's really short. It's about patience. Here it is. When I go to classes, and patience is something that teachers remark. And there are 2 kinds of patience. One is I have patience to do it over and over and over again, and that's not really the kind of patience I have. I have the patience to do it over and over and over again when I see that there is incremental progress every time. If I'm doing something over and over and over again and it's not getting through, then I have to go, whoa, this is too hard for this student. How can I back down until I get to something that they can do so that then we can take the step back up here? So I have patience, but it's important to understand that it's patience when the student's learning, not patience to keep doing the same thing and getting no results. There's one more kind of patience that teachers remark on, and that is, I don't give kids the answer. I wait until they either ask me, they say, I don't know how to do this, and then I can help them, which makes them own whether they know how to do it or not. And sometimes I just wait because they need more time to figure it out. When you're learning something, your brain has to process. My struggling readers often need more time for their brains to process than we think they should. If it takes 45 seconds to remember the name of the letter E, because the kid's going A, B, C, D, E, he's going to take that because the next time it'll take 44 seconds, and the next time it'll take 43 seconds. And I have to give the student the time to process. So does every teacher. Oh, we could watch Trevor Noah. Okay. Oh, does that answer your question? How do you find Reading Rockets? Does that answer that question?
I think that tells us where to find the videos.
Okay, now you want to know where do I get materials to teach? What was the question again?
Yeah, this one was specifically the assessments, and you referenced the assessments from Really Great Reading, I think.
Yeah, you can email me. I can send you the free ones. You can go to Really Great Reading and get the beginning and advanced decoding assessment. If you want, we're happy to share the assessments that we use with our short vowel assessments. Any decodable text will work to figure out the decodable that we worked. And if there are any other assessments you want, you can email me if there are any specific assessments. I think I told you already that I might have just said this in the first class or in the first session, that pre-reading probes are what we use to assess pre-reading skills such as phonological awareness, blending and segmenting. We don't assess manipulating for necessarily. We might, but the pre-reading probes are really for that. Letter names, letter sounds, etc. Those are on our website. They're free, readsters.com. Anything else?
Wonderful. I don't see anything else in the chat box right now. Unless you have any closing thoughts.
I know that it's around noon here. I'm sure people would be very sad to get out 4 minutes early.
That's right. Everybody's probably hungry. Stomachs are growling.
I do want to say thank you for participating. I think these videos, there are many things that are wrong. I mean, you can really use this to say, Linda should have done this, she didn't do that. I think that's one of the good things, is to understand that even people who are teaching well don't do it perfectly all the time. That's certainly me. And I want to thank Patton for, again, this opportunity, and also just for all the great things that you do all the time.
Linda, thank you so much. We're so happy that you were able to join us. I really love that you offer a session like this that helps us. If I'm an instructional coach, or I'm a grade level team leader, and I'm wanting to help the people that I work with, and I'm just not quite sure what to do with something like these videos, because they're so excellent, these resources, to have now this guide to help us talk through it.
Well, let me offer to anyone, if you want to talk over how you could use this video or any of the other videos, just contact us. My business partner was head of a concrete construction company, and I was an investment banker. We volunteered to teach adults how to read. That's where we met. And we both left relatively lucrative jobs to do what we do now, which is not so lucrative. And we want to help kids learn how to read. So if you're sincere about it, we are sincere about offering our help.
Well, thank you so much. We're so appreciative of you and all the work that you have done. And that is tough to leave such a background to go into reading.
Oh, no, it wasn't. It was very easy for me. There is something called monetary income, and there is something called psychic income.
That's
and
right.
I much prefer to work for psychic income.
That is much more like it. I agree.
I love what I do.
Thank you to all the participants who attended the session this morning. Just as a reminder, the session was recorded and will be available on the Patton YouTube channel in the near future. And the Patton Literacy team is always working to create additional resources and supports for the field. And as always, we will be creating supports aligned to these symposium presentations to help maximize additional learning for our families and educators across the state and internationally, even at this point.